So we are going to discuss about the static one, static keyword. So here we have to understand what is static. Static is something we can access anywhere in the project without creating an object. First, we have to understand what is object and why we are creating the object. So let me declare one variable as in demo class. I wanted to access that variable in deep class. So now what I will do basically. So here is the main method. You can have the different method also. Time being, I can write on another method. And I wanted to access the value of s in deep class and add method. So how it will be possible? So in earlier class we discussed we have to make this as a static, then you can access it. If you don't have the static, what we have to do basically? So here what we have to do, we have to create an object. Demo class object equals to new demo and system.out.println object dot. So here you are able to access that value. How you are accessing this value? You created the object for this class and you are able to access that value by using that object reference. So what we have understood here, if I wanted to access any of the variable that is present in the different class, I can able to access it. But the thing is, I have to create an object for that class and I have to access it. First, we have to create an object and we have to access it. So here we will discuss in detail about object in further classes. But basic understand we should have to understand what is object, why you have written this code. So basically, what object will do here? Object is creating a memory reference in the JVM actually. So how that will happen? This is the basically it is a kind of reference for a specific class. Say object is having like we can see and they're having some certain property. That's what we have discussed in the previous class while discussing about what is OOPS principle. Object oriented programming language, everything in Java is object. That's when we discussed about that, we discussed regarding on object, right? So here what is happening here, demo is the class name and object is a variable, and with reference of new demo we are creating. That means in a memory it will store into the heap memory for a reference of that class. Demo class reference will be there. For example, so you are try to applying for CTS for a job. So what you will do, you have the different ways to apply. You can go to the LinkedIn portal and you can go to the Naukri or something like that. Or else, if you have the CTS employee, you will forward your resume to reference. To apply the job position, he will refer and you can apply the job position. So ultimate goal is you wanted to apply the job. So what we required, we need some reference. Here, I wanted to access the value of S that was present in the demo class, and I should have some reference to access that value. So that reference is object. Here what we are doing, we are creating the reference for that class. We are using that reference and we are accessing that value. In case I wanted to apply job that was there in CTS, what are the ways I have? I have to apply through LinkedIn or apply to portal or CTS employee. I can forward my resume, he can refer it. These are the ways we are using to apply the position. Likewise, if I wanted to access the value of S, I have to create a reference for that class, and by using that reference, I can call the specific value. So here, hope you understood why we are creating an object. Now, you don't have, say for example, we don't have this an object and I wanted to call that value. So now it is demo and I wanted to call that value. Okay, demo.s. What it is showing, it is not allowing me to do that. The reason because boss, say for example, you don't have the profile in Naukri and you're not applying through LinkedIn and you don't have the reference for CTS company, will you be able to apply the job? No. So you should have some reference to apply it, right? You don't have. So there is an option called you don't have a Naukri portal, you don't have a LinkedIn, and you don't have the reference. But campus placement came. You don't need to apply. They came to you and they are asking you to apply and they will take the interview. So here your job is zero. You are not even applying for that position. They came to your campus, they pick your resume, they shortlisted, they started interview. Means here nothing, there is no involvement from your side, but you can you are in not like not directly applying but indirectly you are applying, but your effort is zero because they came to like your place, you are not going to their place. Now the same way, if I'm making this as a static int, now I was able to access that value. So the reason because static means here you no need to create an object. You can use without creating the object whenever you want. That means you no need to apply for the job in any MNC because they come to your campus and they are taking the interviews. So how that process will happen, likewise static will behave. So here when you make this as a static and it will allow you to access anywhere whenever you want. See, only thing you have to get placed in the good college. Only thing that you have to placed in the good college. Here to access this value in any class, only thing that you have to do, you have to add the static keyword. So that is what static means. Static means you can access a variable, any class without creating the object. That is nothing but static. So what are the different kind of like what are the different functions or methods we can make it as a static? So is that static is applicable for variables or anything we can make it as a static? That's what we have to understand first. I will give you a couple of scenarios. This will be more helpful for interview oriented. So I will explain those scenarios also. First one, we will discuss about the static methods. So what is static method? First, we will understand. Here I have a method called public void add method is there. Okay, here I'm printing hello. So from where I'm printing, actually I wanted to print from the same class or a different class. Print in the same class. See the scenario first. So if I wanted to invoke this add method, what we have to do first? If I'm writing like this, add method will not call because when I click here, run as an application, it will not call the add method and it will give the error. The reason because whenever you wanted to call a method, you have to create an object and you have to call it. So to call add method, what I'm doing, the same reference I told you regarding that campus, the same thing will be applicable here. Demo object equals to new demo. Okay, object dot add method that we have to call. Right? You can run as Java application. So now hello is calling, and whatever the value that we are printing here, that value is printing here. So what is happening here, whenever you wanted to call a method which is non-static, there is no static keyword in this method, then you have to create an object with the reference of that object, you can call that. But what I'm doing here, so we have added the static keyword, and what I'm doing here is I'm not creating the object and I'm directly calling the add method. Let's see what will happen. That value I can able to access without creating the object for this class. Not only this class, if I wanted to access the same thing from different class also, I no need to create. Only thing is extends, else that is also not required. Let me show you in a different way. Here, demo dot add. That's it. You just tell when which class that method is there, and you can able to access it. You no need to create an object. So what we have understood here is we have the static variables, and we have the static methods. Now we understood what happened when we declare a variable as a static, when we declare a method as a static. So static variables can be accessed anywhere in the project without creating the object, and static methods can access without creating the object. So what else we have? So let me write some content. So here I am writing the static block. This is called static block. It is not a method, it is not a variable, it is a block. So what will happen if you have this static block? All right, so here we have declared a static block. So we'll see what will happen. So even I'm not calling this static method, I don't have this call. And now if I run this program, we'll see what will happen. So here what we have to understand is static block. When you write something in a static block, by default, that will be execute. No need to create, no need to call. Earlier, there is an add method. To access that value or to execute that method, we are just adding that method name. Here, when you write something as a static block, no need to call, no need to write somewhere. Simply you can keep the code which you wanted to execute by default the moment you run the Java program. So that you have to store inside the static block. So we have understood about the static variables, method, and static block. So what this static block will do? Static block will execute by default. Static block will execute by default. Now, first question in interview scenario. So I will tell the scenario first. Public static void add and here add your writing. So now the question is what is the output of this program? What is the output of this program? So here I will explain. Let me print the output. Here you are calling the add method, and above the static block is there. So interview question will be, if you have the static block and static method and you are calling the static method, which one will execute first? So if you have the static block and if you have the static method, which one will execute first? Static block or static method? You are calling the method also. So your answer should be static block. Even if you have the non-static methods and you are calling that methods, no matter what you are doing, static block will be executed first. First priority will be static block. When you have the static methods or static variables or static something, non-static methods, whatever it may be, what will execute by default? Static block will execute by default. Right. First point is clear. And the second interview question. So let me have two different methods. And let me try to show you some scenario. Public void add method. And one more method I have is public void multiplication. And this method is static method. Okay. Now, first, what we have to do basically, I wanted to make a call from non-static method to static method. Here I'm calling the multiple. So it is calling. So when I wanted to call a non-static method means the method which is not having the static keyword is called a non-static method. This is non-static method because this method does not have the static keyword. This method having the static keyword because we call as a static method. If I wanted to call a non-static method from static, so that is not possible. But when I wanted to call a static method from non-static, it is possible. Here we have to understand, we can call the static method from non-static method. But we cannot call the non-static method from static method. So when I try to call this, you can see the error and it will say, boss, this is the static method. You cannot call the static method. That's what it will show the error. I cannot make a static reference to the non-static method. Here, this is the important question. So what you have to understand is, you can access a static methods from non-static method, but you cannot access or call non-static methods from the static method. So it is very important thing. Okay, so next scenario. So now what I have is basically static. Okay, so static method overloading and overriding concept after polymorphism we will discuss. Okay, so why? Because you will not understand what is overloading and overriding in this class. So we'll discuss about the final. Then we will discuss static methods can be override or overloaded. So all the things that we can discuss after the overload of polymorphism concept. So now I will move to the final variables. Right. So in yesterday's class, we discussed about couple of the operators where we perform the multiple mathematical operations. Now what I'm trying to do, I wanted to perform some mathematical operation. Int I equals to 10 and I equals to I plus 20. And sys out, I'm printing the value of I. Here you can expect the output as 30. 10 plus 20 equals to 30. Value is 30. So here what we have to understand is when I declare a variable as a non-final, you are not adding the final keyword, then you can change the value. You are modifying that value. So initially it was 10 and you are overriding, and the value now is 10 plus 20, that is 30. Right. I don't want, or I don't want it to allow to do the modifications. Once I declare the value as 10, I should not change the value. I have to restrict this value I as a 10. You should not allow to change. What we have to do? Here, the key role will be playing by the final keyword. So what final keyword will do? Final keyword, basically when you make a variable as a final int of I equals to 10. So when you make a variable as a final, that will not allow you to change the value. Whatever value you have declared initially, that is fixed. You cannot modify the value of I. So that is called final keyword. When you declare a variable as a final, you cannot change the value. That is called final. When you declare a variable as a final, you cannot change the value of that variable. Whatever you have declared initially, that is fixed. You cannot modify that. So that is the final keyword. It will print the value of I. Basically, for a static, we can apply to variables and methods and blocks. This final keyword you can apply to variables and methods and classes. You can write the final classes also. So what will happen in this case? Here I cannot explain this or behavior in a methods and behavior in a class, and I will show how to write the final methods and class, because you will not understand overriding concept and inheritance concept. After that concept show me, we can discuss. Anyway, I will cover in that classes also while discussing about the inheritance and method overloading, overriding. So here I will give you the key points. So for a static, we have the static variables, static blocks, and static methods. Here, final variables, final methods, and final classes will be present. So what final variables do? We cannot change the value. We cannot change the value. Next, final methods. When you declare a method is a final, you cannot override that method. You cannot override that method. Next, when you declare when you declare a class as a final, you cannot extend. So here I will write the syntaxes, but you will not understand. I will discuss in detail in the next classes. So here I am writing one method, public void add. Okay, public void add. I'm sorry. public void add system.out.println, something will be there inside this. Okay, hello. Now I'm trying to extend that class. Extends the class is a demo. Okay, I'm extending that class. You will not understand what is extends because you will not aware of the inheritance concept. Let it be. And I'm writing the same method here. You can see public void add, and here I'm writing the same method public void. So it is allowing me, I can write it. So here you can do the override. You're doing the overriding. You will not understanding overriding here, but we'll discuss in the next class. Now what I'm doing here, public final void add. Public final void add you are writing. Now you can see here there is an error. What it is telling basically, add is a final method. When you write add is a final method, you cannot override that specific method. You cannot override. So whatever the implementation present in the demo class, that is fixed. You cannot override it. So that is what it is telling. So now you can understand this word. You cannot understand the concept, at least what I have written, you should be able to understand. You cannot override the method. Once you declare a method as a final, you cannot override it. If you don't have this final keyword, let's see what happens. It is not erroring out. It is allowing you to write one more add method. But if you are adding this final keyword, then what is happening basically, it is giving the error and saying that you cannot override it. Right. So you're done with the second point. And third point, classes. So here it is a normal class. Since I can able to extend it, I am not facing any issue. I was able to extend that class. So now what I'm doing here, I'm adding the final keyword for this class and we'll see what is happening. Here I'm using the same keyword extends demo, and it is erroring out and saying that final classes cannot be extended. So when you mark this class as a final, that class cannot be extended. You will not understand what extends will do, but here you should see the error. That means you should understand final class. When they make a class as a final, so you cannot extend that class. That's what you have to understand. So hope you are clear with what is a final keyword and a static keyword. So we use it to call them as result words as well as non-access modifiers. Non-access modifiers. We will discuss more in more about access modifiers concept. But these two things we called as the keywords and result words and non-access modifiers. Okay. I'm done with class. Mukesh, any questions?
No, sir.
Clear?
Sir. Yes, sir.
You understood
Clear.
what is static and what is final. Clear, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Perfect. Thanks.